Good day, sports junkies. Welcome to the Church of the Holy Point Spread from Las Vegas. I am Chip Chirimbes along with Jim Feist, being brought to you by gamblersWORLD.net. This is NFL preview for Week 9. Welcome aboard, Jim. We will be without Paul Bovey this week, Jim, so it appears as of right now. But we've got a lot of things to talk about in the NFL. Jim, how was your NFL weekend?
My NFL was good. The college was not. I had the Dodgers to win the World Series, which I was happy about.
Right.
But I did bet the Yankees yesterday. I thought with Cole I had a great chance, and until they just absolutely messed it up in the fifth inning with all those errors and stuff, I thought I had a winner. But that's sports betting for you.
It reminds me of the nightmare they had in Oakland when Charlie Finley tried to remove a player in the middle of a ball game. The World Series actually tried to fire him, but that's not going to happen here. This is, of course, Jim Feist, Mr. Vegas. We're coming live from Las Vegas. Paul Bovey won't be with us, or he's trying to get through to us right now, Jim. And his expertise is always welcome, of course, except by the bookmakers. Jim, you know, every week now we've had. They give power ratings in the NFL, and things have changed this week. Have you noticed that the Detroit Lions has taken over the number one spot ahead of Kansas City, and we have a few people at the bottom rung as well. Last week we talked about teams that were just unbettable, and they just went out like the Giants and did their thing once again. Do you think that Detroit is deserving of the number one team in the NFL right now?
Yes, I do.
Right now, last week. Go ahead. I was going to say last week they scored 51 points. Did you see what their total offensive output was?
I did. They're playing some smart football. They're old school football. They got I don't know, number one or number two offensive line in the business. They run the ball exceptionally well. Goff doesn't have to do a lot, but when he does, he's very efficient. I mean, there's one week, a couple of weeks ago, he was 18 for 18. Did 100 under 100 yards passing, but they're running the ball and they're playing good defense. They have the unconventional head coach, but the players love him and they love playing for him. There's a lot of camaraderie in the clubhouse, and people don't talk enough about that and how much that affects the play on the field. When the players are together and they like each other and they like their coaches and they like their leadership, they'll play a lot harder for you.
Yeah, it seems that way anyway. Cleveland was a horrible situation there. We understand to a man they really didn't want Watson out there. We have moved into the third spot, and kind of a surprising as far as the power ratings go, Jim, is the Buffalo Bills. And I'm telling you, I was very impressed by what I saw against Seattle. Now, Seattle may be a little banged up and a little hurt and not quite the level that we had anticipated earlier in the season. Boy, but this Buffalo and this Josh Allen, I think they're playing great football right now, ranked third by the NFL.
And deservedly so. They're playing very well. Big game this week against Miami. Miami with Tua coming back on his second effort should be better than what he had on the first effort.
Right.
They were surprised last week and they lose to the Cardinals, but the Cardinals are dangerous. They have enough talent on that team to surprise you every once in a while, and they did. When you talk about Kansas City going for the three-peat,
right?
They're not playing that well. When you look at their metrics and all the things they're doing on offense. But they have, in my opinion, the best defensive coordinator in the business. They got a hell of a head coach, very talented offensive head coach and overall leader. Patrick Mahomes is one of the better, if not, well, I don't know if he's still the best quarterback in the business, but he is one of the better quarterbacks in the business. And they have had issues at wide receiver for the last couple of years because of injuries. They're filling it in. They picked up Hopkins. Hopkins isn't a burner, but he's a great control guy. It spreads the field a little bit. Now you got to watch for a couple of people. But, we have the trade deadline coming up on the 5th. I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of these teams that are in the hunt but not quite there, make some moves. Like, for example, you mentioned the Lions. They lost, who was it, Hutchinson's a couple of weeks ago, and
Yeah.
they could definitely use somebody to replace him because that is a hole now they have on defense that would make a difference. So what's happening in the league is we have the top and the bottom. This isn't the
Right.
parity league that we had years ago. We have 32, but the top 15, the bottom 15, however you want to mix it, some of the teams at the bottom are barely better than college. Now, we all know that in college you have guys that are never going to play at the pro level, so they're never going to be quite as good as a pro team,
Right.
even the worst pro teams. But they're not good. They're not well coached. They're
Right.
not well. The ownership is sometimes bad, and it starts sometimes with the ownership, the general manager, the head coach, the defensive coach, the offensive coach. There's a lot of things that go into winning. It's not just paying Dak Prescott $60 million and you're going to the Super Bowl. Bad move, bad move, bad move. They gave him a bag, but they didn't support him. They have no run game. Their defense is bullshit against the run. If you have a running team, or you can gain 200-300 yards against this team, they can't stop anybody. So Jerry Jones has done a very, very bad job lately as the GM of the team. He has all the money in the world. God, hats off to him for making all the money. And the ownership of the team is a very valuable franchise, but he should not be running the team like he is. He's too interfering. You might have the same kind of situation in Carolina. The ownership, the owner is very wealthy. He's a very smart man. I thought he would come in and do a good job, but he is too interfering. And when you have this kind of interference from people that don't know what they're doing, you're going to have chaos. The best teams that win year after year after year after year have strong ownership, strong general manager, strong head coach, good offensive and defensive coordinators, and they generally have a very solid offensive line and quarterback.
All right, Jim, rounding out the top five would be Baltimore and Washington. So we have Detroit, Kansas City, and Buffalo, top three. NFL ranks Baltimore, Washington 4 and 5. I have no problem with either of those. Washington, a big surprise. Another surprise they had, Jim. We'll get to the bottom rung in a second, and we'll get to games for all of you out there as well. Denver's all the way up to number 11, and they were considered one of the worst teams coming into the season. In the bottom rung, Jim, the teams you already mentioned. We have Carolina, Tennessee, New England, then Las Vegas, who's actually downtrending faster than just about anybody here. Jacksonville, Cleveland. The Giants are ranked 26th. They're 7th from the worst. Jim, like you said, you have the haves and the have-nots, and the have-nots are really, really bringing down the rest of the NFL because, like we said last week, some of these games and teams are just unbettable. I mean, if you had the Giants like I did on Monday night, I mean, you're just kicking yourself in the head. And, Jim, we have some big games on the slate this weekend. This is Jim Feist, of course, Mr. Las Vegas, one of the most valued opinions in Las Vegas right now in the sports handicapping industry. Jim, Detroit is going to Green Bay. Detroit, the juggernaut, 52 points last week, 6-1 on the year. Green Bay 6-2. Some quarterback issues here on the Packers side. How do you evaluate this matchup?
Well, we all know it's a big game, and of course, for a lot of people, every game is a big game if they have money on it. But this is a big game in this division, and potential Super Bowl teams. Jordan Love is excellent. He has a lot of potential, as is Jared Goff. They're both very, very good. Right now, the Detroit Lions are the best team in football because of what they're doing on the field, because of their chemistry, because of their belief in each other in the locker room and on the field, and their head coach is doing a hell of a job. I'm not saying that Green Bay isn't. They are. But they've suffered some injuries at the quarterback position, and it's hurt them. If Love isn't playing, the line that we're looking at is Detroit 3, 48's the number. It makes a difference from Love down to Willis. Willis is not the starting quarterback for a reason. He's not as good as Love.
Yeah.
However, he's good, but he's not potentially Love. If Love is playing, I'm going to be on the Lions. Now, we're not going to really know this maybe to game time, but hopefully on Friday, because a lot of times on Friday we can determine that. It's a big game. Home field advantage is real in Green Bay. It's always been real. And the other thing is the Lions might start to believe a little bit too much in themselves, and they shouldn't be laying points in Green Bay. So I would be on Packers. If he isn't playing, I may just pass the game. Or if Millis is playing, I'm going to probably be on the under if I can get under the big number that's out there now at 48. It could adjust. You got to remember, these lines are movable. They're not going to stay there, not stationary.
The bookmaker really hasn't moved it too much because I guess of the quality of play that Malik Willis has already shown us. 29-39 and 74% is last time out. Both these teams move the ball, of course. Green Bay is averaging just under 400 yards a game. And, you know, Jim, 303 return yards for Detroit, scoring 52 points. They had less than 100 yards passing, barely 200 yards total offense. Their defense really took advantage. They had a 90-yard punt return. So all facets of the game are clicking right now for Detroit, which has got the number one NFL power rating, 6-1 against the number. Jim, they're 8-2 in the last 10 going back to last year against the number. And Green Bay is only 3-7 going back to last year in the last 10. But these two are division rivals. They've been division rivals for years, and they've had some classic matchups in the past. This may end up being one of them, particularly with these quarterbacks. Goff, the way he's performing, Jim, and, of course, Love or even Willis. But I see this game going over the total. Green Bay and Detroit from Chip Chirimbes, Las Vegas Hilton World Champion. Jim, I know you had a good weekend in the NFL this past week, and I'd like everyone to understand that Jim is selling his premier picks, his NFL picks every week on gamblersworld.net, and Jim has packages from weekly, weekend, and monthly packages, so don't be afraid to log on and buy any one of the wonderful handicappers we have at gamblersworld.net. Jim, we've got over a dozen out there, and they all seem to be doing pretty well. And we have another good matchup for you. And I'm just throwing this one at you because I don't think I even had these guys aware that I was going to do this. But Miami's going to Buffalo, and there's a big change now in Miami. They had Tua come back last week, and they still got beat. He had another wonderful day. Arizona scores 2 touchdowns in the final period and overcomes the Dolphins. You think the Dolphins rebound here against the number one power-laden team in the NFL, the Buffalo Bills?
Last week, a lot of the bettors, Sharps and the Joes and the pros, were all over Miami with Tua coming back. It was a huge mistake. I thought it was a huge mistake. I saw the line go all the way up to 5. And the reason I say it's a huge mistake, the kid, Tua, was coming off a concussion protocol. He hadn't practiced very much. And there's a statistic out there. When somebody comes off that kind of a layoff with a concussion protocol, there's a 33% drop-off in efficiency.
Right.
Well, you take 33% off of anybody, they're not going to do that well. Now, he's got a week of practice. He's healthier. He's got, the timing is back. It's going to be, if the weather, Buffalo has kind of crazy weather when you're up there, by the lake and everything. It can get nuts. So we have to look at the late weather because a Miami team in Buffalo, if it's cold and it's starting to get chilly up there in that area, and if it gets windy and cold and wet, it's going to affect Miami. So we need to stay up on top of the weather. Buffalo's 6-49. If Miami's offense is clicking, and I expect it will, and if the weather is good, hopefully it will be, this could be a shootout. But Buffalo is playing very smart football. You don't see Allen making the turnovers that he used to make. He's playing a different kind of a game. I think he threw his first interception of the year last week. So, this is pretty incredible. They are the better team. Right now, they're the better coached team. They added an offensive weapon they got out of Cleveland, which I don't understand why Cleveland traded him. But that's a big plus for Buffalo. They are better. They're home. And they're more in sync than Miami. I am not going to lay 6 points with Buffalo. So what I would look for is I'm going to look at the weather. I'm going to see what kind of practices they have on Friday. And we really never know who's playing and who's healthy up until game time. But the closest we get to that is after the practices on Friday. So late information could be a real effect in this game for me.
You know, Jim, Miami was expected to contend in the East, and they were 1-6 against the points, and they were 2-less. And in 5 games without them, they scored 50 points. And I don't think there's a team out there that has as dramatic a drop-off as the Miami Dolphins, because everything revolves around Tua, his quick release. He makes that offense go. And if he's not out there, you really have no shot. I mean, they had him last week, 28-38, 235 yards, and they still got beat. So Miami has some holes, some work to do. Buffalo, boy, I tell you, they played great. I love watching them against Seattle. Of course, that was my lone loser in the entire NFL week, Jim, was having the Seahawks. And they had no chance against this Buffalo team. They were really outclassed. Miami last week gave up 4 fumbles. They've lost 5 of the last 6. It's a struggle. I think with Tua, they should rise to the occasion. I can see Miami covering this game. By the way, Miami's only cover on the season, Jim, was against Jacksonville. And there's 2 covers in their last 10 games altogether. There's some interesting games out there. I mean, we have the Giants and Washington. There's a storyline we can use there. But let's go to the time change game, Jim, where we have Minnesota's going to be hosting Indianapolis. And, of course, we went over the fact that Falco's going to be starting for Indianapolis, and Richardson's been so bad, 10 of 32 last game, 10 of 24 the previous game. He can run the ball, but he's just not an NFL quality quarterback right now. I think we've talked about it. Last time these 2 teams met, Minnesota wins 39-36. But in the last 4 times they met, make that 5 times, Jim, Indianapolis has gotten the money. And Indianapolis has the running game if Taylor's healthy. What do you think is going to happen in Minnesota, who's now dropped their last 2 after opening with 5 straight wins?
Well, the 5 straight wins probably overrated them a little bit. Yeah. And Darnold is not the MVP of the league, and he's probably going to regress. There's in the 5 games starting last week on their schedule, 4 of them were on the road, and only 1 is a division game, and that is against Chicago in week 5 of that 5-game group. It's a very strange situation. This is a home game against Indianapolis, who lost last week against Houston. Richardson is not an NFL quarterback. I don't know that he ever will be, but he is a tremendous, tremendous, tremendous athlete, and he might be a great kid. But there's no G League in the NFL. He needs help. He needs help. He needs training. He needs schooling. You can't do that in the NFL when you have 51 other guys on your roster that want to win. They know they're not going to win with him because he can't complete. His efficiency rating in almost every metric is terrible. Flacco is a winner. He's 40 years old. I don't know how the hell he's doing it, but he is a winner. He knows how to play. He's very smart. He's very accurate. And he gives them the best chance to win now. Yeah, there's the people who say, well, you got to play Richardson so you know what you got going into next year. Well, you know what you got. If you know football, you know you're watching it. You're seeing it. You don't need to throw any more games away. Let Flacco play. They can win the game. They could go up there and beat Minnesota. They legitimately could beat them on the field.
You know, this Richardson had so little experience at Florida, and he was so raw and so inaccurate, and he doesn't seem to have the touch. I'm wondering, Jim, I just come up with this right now. Do you think there's a shot that because of his athleticism, because of his, him being a great athlete and great runner, maybe they might consider playing him at a different position and giving up the quarterbacking?
Well, this really comes down to the kid himself. Does he want to? We've seen that before, where guys came in thinking they're quarterbacks in the NFL and they're really talented, but they don't want to be anything else, and they walked away. And I think I can't remember his name right now.
Tebow.
But he can't. You got it. You just said it. He could have done anything, but he couldn't play quarterback.
Right. All right. That's going to be interesting to see what happens down the line with him, because he really doesn't look like he's an NFL quarterback. And remember out there, give us a like. We've got Jim Feist. Paul Bovey isn't with us this week, but he'll be back again. And We're at gamblersworld.net. Follow the links, become a play winner. Las Vegas Hilton Championship Chirimbes come back big time last week in the NFL on Sunday. We almost swept the board, came this close. If Seattle had only scored 35 more points, Jim. You know how it is. Well, that close, Jim. You could have taken another game, I guess. But we're out there, and we've been doing really well with it, and so have a lot of other people on the site as well. So don't hesitate to join anybody's selection group, because if you don't succeed, you can take that and use it as a credit with any other handicappers we have out there. Any way you want to round this up, Jim? You have something that you think you'd like to give them as an actual play for Sunday?
Well, I think we talked about knowing that we like the Colts, and you can see it. We like that. There's a lot of stuff going on in the league with the ownerships and the general managers and all this. Atlanta looks like they might run away with that division. Now they're hosting Dallas. Dallas just lost to San Francisco. Dallas is coming off the embarrassing loss at home the previous game, and then they didn't play very well in the second half against San Francisco. And San Francisco has a lot of injuries on that team as well. There's a lot that needs to be done by Dallas to improve this club. Can they go to Atlanta taking 3 points and beat Atlanta? Atlanta's defense can be had, but Atlanta can and will manage their game well because they got good leadership on the field. Their coaching is doing a good job, and they don't have as a lot of interference from the ownership and the general manager, who for Dallas happens to be the same guy.
Jim, we're saying way too often, here comes Dallas off another poor performance. I mean, and when they're getting beat, they're looking terrible too. It isn't even like they look like they're competitive. They're just out of the game. And I don't know how long McCarthy's going to end up staying there. Jerry Jones seems to be enamored with him for some reason.
Well, it's not McCarthy's fault. It's what they did in the offseason or didn't do in the offseason. Yeah. They don't have wide receivers. They have one guy, Lamb. They're building other guys. They got a good tight end. Their offensive line is iffy. Their defense is very weak, and they've had a couple defensive players, really good ones, out. So they're not playing at full strength, and they're not. They didn't build this team to win. Now, granted, if you look at the last 3-4 years, they've done very well in the regular season. They'll crap out in the playoffs, but right now they're not doing very well in the regular season either. Yep. I'm not very high on what Dallas is doing.
I understand, Jim. Their running game is absolutely atrocious. I think they had like 41 yards last game. Prescott is actually having a pretty good season yardage wise, but you got to come up with wins in this league, and that's the bottom line. And it is Bill Parcells that said you are what your record says you are. So Dallas right now is a struggle, and I don't know how how they can evolve. I think Washington's probably going to win the NFC East. But all right, Jim, thank you very much. I'm going to use the go that I had said it before, the Packers and the Lions to go over the total. The 52 points Detroit scored last week is deceiving because it was done mostly with returns and defensive play. But I think both these teams go over. Quality quarterbacks, like you said, Goff went. The ball never touched the ground one day. He was 18 for 18. And no matter who we have quarterback in the Packers, they seem to be pretty proficient right now. Packers have gone over 6 of their last 10. Dallas has gone. Who we're talking about here? Green Bay has gone over 6 of the last 10, and Detroit's going over 7 of their last 10. So, Jim, there it is from me. I'm going to play the total over Lions and Packers. You, of course, is it the Dallas Cowboys, Jim, that come up big here?
Oh, I don't like the Dallas Cowboys.
No, I'm teasing you with that.
Dallas Cowboys. I would play Atlanta in the game.
All right, there's Jim on Atlanta. He likes the quarterbacking change there. It's helped. And, of course, Dallas has done nothing in the offseason, like you said, but it looks like they've weakened their squad. Okay, for Jim Feist, and Paul Bowie is not here, this is Chip Chirimbes saying make sure you give us a like, and we'll be here each and every week for an NFL preview. This is week 9. Good luck, everybody, and make sure that you come up with some big-time winners.